So, right, let's get straight into it. Um, so, number one, first, the first of my golden rules is around the credibility of your business. The first thing anyone's going to do as a potential franchisee is kind of check you out, right? And they're going to look at, you know, what reputation you have. They'll check out financial stability. They'll check out your online presence. Check out kind of, the size of your business, if you like. If someone's going to invest in you as a franchise, become a franchisee, they're going to want to know they're going to get the right support from you. So if you've got the capacity for that, that kind of thing. We'll talk about internal management in a second, but what image are you portraying to the outside world? Now, more and more and more, of course, it's not just Googling your business, is it? It's sticking it into ChatGPT and saying, what do you think about XYZ business? Or, is this XYZ business franchise opportunity worth it? If people are going to be asking ChatGPT, aren't they, or other AI models that question. So I don't pretend to be an AI expert in any means, but the answer to that is going to come from what's your breadth of presence across the wider world, isn't it? So your credibility is lent, how many customer reviews have you got? What Google reviews have you got? A really good client of mine that does online estate agency. They've not long launched, got a couple of franchisees doing really well, but they really worked hard on their wider profile. They've got a fantastic YouTube channel, for example, and that really helps with posting content that helps their credibility. Because if you Google them or ChatGPT them, they come up with a really good profile. So think about what's the image that your business is portraying to the outside world? What's its credibility? Number one. Yeah. How do you stand out from your competition? You go around the franchise show today and you'll see, take the care industry as a good example. There's quite a few care industry providers, right? So good market for franchising. I don't know. Maybe some of you in the audience are in that market. I don't know. But each one must have something that differentiates themselves from the other, right? Otherwise, why would you pick that franchise and not the other franchise? So what is it in your market, in your business, that differentiates you from the competition, from the market? Okay, your product might be a bit different, but it might be the way you talk about your product is a bit different. Yeah, the way you sell your product. Um, Another client I've got are in wraparound care. They provide preschool and after school classes within schools, and they do things like holiday clubs. Very crowded market, very busy market. Lots of choice out there for parents to do that. In terms of the schools, I should say, the choice in who the providers are. But they've differentiated themselves very much within the tech behind it, and they've created some fantastic technology that allows parents to book on and real-time booking, and the guys turn up with their iPads and they can see who's booked on and all that kind of stuff. And it's really, really good. So from a sales perspective of the franchise, that's something that the franchisee would buy into, because it would cost them a lot of money to set that up for themselves. So the product, the delivery of the service to the wraparound care is fairly generic, if you like, but the way in which it's delivered and managed is how they differentiate themselves. So think about, how do you differentiate yourselves from your competition and in the market generally? And don't forget as well, of course, you're in a franchise show, right? There'll be people come here today thinking, I want to start my own business, and I might buy a franchise. And you might think, well, I don't know, I might buy that franchise or that franchise or that franchise. So you're kind of in competition with people that are going to buy a franchise in a different market, right? So how do you differentiate your franchise offer to potential franchisees that makes it attractive to them against another franchise offer in a different industry? Okay, so can you transfer the knowledge of what you do? How easy is it to teach what you do to the franchisees? Yeah, generally speaking, that's something I'm sure most of you will say, yeah, that's okay, I can do that. But if your business relies very heavily on your expertise, yeah, your recipes or your process or whatever it is that you do, how easy can you transfer that knowledge? Systems and processes, the product knowledge, and how you talk about the product, right? Or your service, how you market it. Could you teach how it's marketed? So back to my point, scale yourself really on that 1 to 10 scale. How easy is your service or product teachable? And again, using another example, I've got a client that's got ice cream shops, dozen or so across London, does very well, really nice business. Again, fairly new to the franchise market, but they've worked really hard on that training as to how do they train people to make the ice cream fresh in store every day. That's part of their differentiation. And it's got to be made in store every day. So that training program, we spent a lot of money in at time and thinking through how they train it really well. So can you transfer the knowledge? Okay. Number 4, adaptability. Adaptability. So how adaptable is your product? Sort of, I guess, kind of makes you know uh, makes sense in terms of what I put on the screen. So it speaks for itself, kind of thing. Is your product, is your service adaptable across the region, different regions, different parts of the country, different markets, etc. Um, we all know that things are different priced around the country. There's an element of different pricing around the country, isn't there, depending on where you live, that kind of thing. So is your product adaptable? Can you adapt the price around that? If you charge, can you charge more in London than you would in, wherever, kind of thing? Does that lend itself to your product? So how adaptable are you? Okay. And 5, can you pilot your franchise? Can you pilot your operations? Can you demonstrate to potential franchisees that the franchise will work? Yeah, it's a really important one, I think, to show that your business is franchisable. Now, I know some of you. I've spoken to some of you who already got sort of, inverted commas, a pilot operation because you've got a couple of branches out there, yeah, which effectively can operate as a demonstration of a pilot operation. But a franchisee, again, any franchisee that's going to come and spend money with you and do their due diligence is going to say, well, how can you show me this is going to work? Clearly, if you've got, well, okay, I've got even if it's a friend or a colleague or a family member that's kind of running a branch of the business down the road, kind of thing, that could still act as a pilot franchise, right? It demonstrates that it can work outside of your core business. Referenceable, as I say, people will reference that as a point. Um, yeah, so successful pilot operation. So think about it. Can you do something now that will start to think about, okay, can we run a branch somewhere else and almost like ring fence the finances around it somehow, so you can show what that outlet or that person or whatever it might be takes in and their profitability separate to your own business. Okay, number 6. Hey, franchising is all about replicating a system, right? Systems and processes. So almost, I if it's my biggest tip, but certainly one of my big tips that I want you to take away from this is document your processes. Yeah, document how you make the thing you make, document how you the process you use, that kind of thing. Now, it doesn't have to be in a bunch of old-fashioned files, does it? Of course, stick it on a Google sheet or something, whatever's best for you. But um, you want to start to kind of maintain those standards that you have in your own business, right? You want to see those carried through with each franchise and each franchisee, and it might be down to the detail of the time you open the shop, or the way you answer the phone, or the way you greet a new client, or the way you dress as you go and see a client, whatever it might be. All of those things are probably important to some of you in your business now, and you do that naturally because that's what you do. But start to write that stuff down, because at some stage you're going to need to produce a franchise manual. The franchise manual is a tricky thing to produce because there's a lot of detail that needs to go into that. And so the more you can do that now and start to kind of pull those processes together and write them down, how you do stuff, rather than just having it all up here in your head. Okay, cool. Okay, number 7. Are you really clear on who your target audience is? And I mean your target audience for potential franchisees. Yeah, not your customers, but your potential franchisees. Yeah, are you looking for the right people to invest in your franchise? Is it affordable? Does it kind of just make sense? I know that sounds fairly obvious, but I talk to a lot of potential franchisors who say, "Hey, my franchise is worth X amount. I can sell it for this amount." Actually, it's got to be realistic, right? Go around the show today and ask the franchisors here, how much does it cost to invest in your franchise, and what support do I get for that? What do I get for that? How do you support me on an ongoing basis? Yeah, because people are going to want to spend if they're going to spend money on you, they're going to want to return on that investment, right? Talk about the numbers. I think it's number 8, but they're going to want a return on the money they're spending with you. And that's not just in profitability, which is clearly clear. And as I say, numbers is the next point, but it's in terms of the support they get from you. Yeah, franchises generally don't work when the franchisor is not giving the support to the franchise network and the franchisees kind of, wither, if you like, and don't perform in the way you'd like them to, but then they're not getting the support from the franchisor. So think about what that support model looks like, and is it realistic? Are you going to find the right kind of person? One of the things we do with clients is very much work on who's the ideal franchisee. We build a picture, an avatar, if you like, the picture of what an ideal franchisee would be, because that very much helps you start to think about, what type of person is it? What's their background, perhaps? What might their experience already be in the market you have? Do they need it? Maybe they don't. Maybe they can come into your market, your franchise with no experience, and that's okay, isn't it? But be clear on that and start to think about, what is that kind of person? And are those people out there? There are enough of those kind of people around that I can get in front of to talk about my franchise opportunity and hopefully get them to buy one from me. And I talk a lot with clients about you don't sell franchises, you award franchises. Yeah, someone has to be worthy of your brand. Yeah, you guys have spent time and effort over years probably to build up your business and your brand and your image, etc., the credibility that I talked about. So franchisees have to be kind of worthy of that, right? And I think sometimes the franchises that are just trying to just find franchisees to sell franchises like that, that's potentially a recipe for trouble in the future. So under that kind of knowing your target audience, think about that. Are they worthy of my franchise? Are they worthy of carrying on my business name? Yeah. Yeah. So number 8 is the numbers really. So hey, look, starting point, your current business has to be profitable, right? It's a bit of a no-brainer. You have to be able to demonstrate that you can make some money doing what you do. Otherwise, why would someone buy the franchise? So there has to be sufficient profitability in it, and you have to be able to therefore kind of think, take that franchise model, build some sort of franchise illustrations, financial illustrations for the franchisee as to what would their P&L look like. Yeah, if they get typically this many customers through the door, or this many clients each month, this is the average sale price of the product or the service, this is the average costings, etc. This is kind of what a P&L would look like for a franchisee. Does that stack up? And is there enough margin in there to pay you as the franchisor for that support and service that they're going to need from you? So does it work? Is it a win-win? I think on the slide again. So yeah, and as I said just now, people are going to want a return on their investment, right? Yeah, people are going to want to spend some money with you on purchase that franchise. They're going to want to see what's the return on that investment. So at what stage would you expect a franchisee to start to break even and move into profitability? Is it a year? Is it 2 years, 18 months? I don't know. There's no right answer, but at least as franchisors, you need to have a really good grip of what that could look like for a franchisee, because they're going to ask you that, right? Okay. And my role as a franchise consultant, that's a lot of what I do. I help franchisors model this stuff to help them answer those questions with potential franchisees. So there's sufficient profit. There's sufficient profit for you guys too, of course. There's a lot of effort that's going to go into creating a franchise model. So it has to work for you. You can take your percentage as a management service fee to service your franchise business, provide that support you're going to provide, but also create a profit. Does it work? Okay, market trends. So number 9. So is your product or service, think about where it sits in the trend in the market. Yeah. Again, you look around, it's interesting as you come, I come to these shows every year now, and it's surprising how the trends move in terms of what you see, in terms of what's on offer as franchises. Things like food and beverage is pretty staple in the franchise market. Things like care industry is pretty staple in the franchise market. But interesting, just talking in just guys I know that are now in the audience here that I've spoken to very briefly. Again, there's some emerging different things that perhaps have not seen as franchise models before. You think about where does your business fit within that supply line? within that market trend. I've got a client that does running clubs. Um, think easy to set up a running club, right? It's pretty easy. It's a bunch of people go out and run together, but they're very focused on off-road trail running. Massive growth in that at the moment. I'm personally, I'm not a runner myself, but we do some research into that. That growth in that market, in those kind of, people doing ultra marathons and, running the whole length and breadth of North to South Wales and things like this in a weekend. There's stupid things that most people do. There's a massive growth in that market. So his franchise launched this time last year. He's got 6 franchisees already in a year. He's hit that market. That market trend is there, hit at the right time, talking to the right people in that market, boom, take off. So think about where you fit. And as I said in here, things like not just your product, but also what do you need to be able to make your product in terms of, is your supply line secure? Can you service a bigger market as the franchise network grows? We've got capacity to do that. Is there a trend in that, and price stability is what I was going to say. Can you see the service and products that you offer? Could you see people paying for that for years to come? Yeah, there has to be some longevity to it, right? It's not just fashion today or fad today. The people pay for this stuff for years to come. You'll typically do a franchise agreement for 5 years, maybe 10 years, depends on what your market is, what business you're in. If someone's going to spend money on a pizza people are behind me, it's a big investment to set up a pizza shop or something, you're probably talking a 10-year franchise agreement. Service industry might be more sort of 5-year franchise agreement. But is your product, is your service going to remain in fashion, if you like, for the next 5 to 10 years? Okay, access to finance. Again, think about your own situation now, your own financial situation. As it says on the slide, franchising is seen as a lower cost option for growth because you're bringing in other people that are going to make their own investment into their business under your franchise brand. But it's not a no cost option. It's going to cost you something. It's going to cost you some money to get your legal agreement set up. I've talked about producing the manuals, training program. That's all going to cost you something, right? Even if it's your time is money. Yeah. You're going to need to bring in some professional advice somewhere along the line, whether it's through consultants like yourself or it's the legal side of things or your accountants to set up the right company structures, etc. There's a lot to it in terms of getting that structure correct so that you could promote a really good image to the outside world of your franchise business, that it looks professional, it's structured really well, you've got all the right documentation in place, you've got a strong legal agreement. It's going to cost you some money, right, to do that. So just think about budget, think about what your access to finance is. And by the way, if you want to talk about this on a more personal level, come and see me on the stand. I'll give you some kind of ideas around numbers for this because it will vary depending on your own business, what your market is, etc. Okay, number 11. How are we doing on time? We're okay. Number 11. So how committed are you at building relationships with people? Yeah, so your franchisees are not employees, right? So you don't have to like your franchisees, but it kind of helps. Certainly the early ones that you're working with to help sort of shape that franchise model. Inevitably with the first 1, 2, 3 franchisees, inevitably there's teething problems. There's going to be something that comes up that you haven't thought about. It's bound to be, right? That's life. So can you build a good relationship with those early franchisees? And then can you build a good relationship with franchisees generally? So it's about a commitment. As I say, you might have a 5 to 10 year contract with these people, right? So kind of need to be able to get on with them, build a relationship with them. And importantly, I think, you're a catalyst as a franchisor, you're a catalyst to the relationship between your franchisees. If that makes sense. If you've got a bunch of franchisees, however that might be, whether it's 5 or 6 or whether it's 56, those franchisees will talk to each other. They'll compare performance. They'll compare the support they get from you as a franchisor. So you're a really good catalyst to make sure there's a forum, if you like, for franchisees to talk to each other and get together and learn from each other and support, etc., etc. And hopefully everyone performs better as a result, don't they? But even things like, simple things like a Monday morning Teams call that your franchisees are all on together about, who's got what on this week kind of thing. Simple things like that are really good at just building the relationship within the franchise. And you want franchisees to want to stay with you, don't you? Yeah, you want franchisees to sign that 5-year agreement or that 8-10 year agreement, whatever it is, and want to stay with you for the duration of that and not walk away with all the knowledge they've learned, just go and do it on their own, which happens clearly. But people will stay in a franchise if it feels right, if the relationship's good, the support they're getting is strong, good, and they get on well with you as franchisor and fellow franchisees. And I've worked with some big global franchise brands over the years, and you get people sign into a 7-year contract, 7 years comes up without thinking they'll do another 7 years. And I know people that without thinking will do another 7 years. I know people that have been 20 odd years as franchisees because they know that relationship side is strong, support is great. They could probably go and do it on their own now because they know what it is, they know how to do it. But why would you if you're amongst a really strong group that are supporting you and the brand's great and all that kind of stuff? So I always think this when you're launching a franchise, when someone's trying to, you're trying to sort of award that franchise to people. It's always hard to find franchisees, right? That's why shows like this exist. But in some ways, that's the simplest bit because at that moment, everything's new and great, and you're going to train them, and they're excited because they're coming into the brand and they're going to start selling your product and set up their new shop or their new van or whatever it is. It's how do you keep them engaged when it's 2, 3, 4 years in, and they're thinking, "Yeah, I know how to do this now. I know how to make the stuff, or I know how to service the stuff, or I know how to do it. I don't need you, franchisor. Why am I paying you my 8%, 12%, whatever it is?" So being able to answer that because you've got great relationships keeps people in, right? And that's almost like the most important for the longevity and the long-term growth and stability of your franchise. So think about that. What does it look like a few years in? And the last one, number 12, strength of management. So again, think about your own company structure now. Yeah. Even at the show yesterday and today, I've talked to people who are one-man bands that are looking to franchise. Nothing wrong with that at all. Can work really well. I've talked to people that have got a really strong management team in place already for their existing business. But if you think about it, your franchise business is a different business. It's not whatever you do now. Franchising is a new business that you're setting up. So managing that franchise network, finding the franchisees, recruiting them, training them, supporting them, as I'm talking about, it's a different business, right? So think about what is the management structure? Do you have that in place now, or do you know how you could have that? Do you have the capacity within your current day, busy working days that you have already? How do you fit that time in to create and launch a franchise? So think about that. You're going to market it, you're going to handle the leads, etc., etc. And okay, some of the stuff down here builds as you grow your franchise. You can bring someone on if you've got some franchisees on board, of course it is. But think about, what does that management team look like? How strong is it? What capabilities do you currently have in your business that you can tap into? Okay, so that's good. So look, that's the 12 steps. So as I say, hopefully, you've kind of, as I said, scored yourself a little bit, give you some ideas. Where are you strong? Where are you not so strong? All that kind of thing. I've broken down almost like the 3 stages, if you like, that I see it in terms of how you would build a franchise network, build a franchise business from scratch. It's your first stage is that kind of evaluation planning stage. Step 2 is prep. I think I've got another slide actually. Yeah. So step 1 is that evaluation. And people like franchise consultants like myself at Ashton's can help you with this stuff. Build an action plan, do some evaluation, do some 5-year financial projections, all that good stuff, SWOT analysis, etc., etc. So spend some real good time building the foundations first, right? Yeah, obvious analogy, get your foundations in right. Get a good plan in place, understand the numbers, understand how it can work. Pricing of a franchise, how much to charge, all that's a tricky one. There's no right or wrong answer. You have to test the market a little bit. but you've got to start somewhere, right? In terms of how much you're going to charge, what percentage fee you're going to take. So some modeling that he's doing around that. I can help you, other people can help you with that kind of stuff. So do that first phase. Step two is where the work is. That's your development. That's producing all the documentation, writing your franchise manual, as I said, getting your legal work done, building the training programs, etc., etc. That's where you're doing the stuff as you then get ready to launch into step three, which is getting out there, finding your franchisees. There's some good people here that do franchise advertising franchises, where you can platforms for advertising. People like myself can help you with your marketing plan, in terms of how you put your name out there and promote your franchise opportunity, how you deal with leads, how you et cetera, et cetera. That's the kind of third stage, if you like, the recruitment. And I talked already about knowing who you're looking for as your franchisees, who are not employees. You want them to be a bit entrepreneurial because they're starting their own business, but you kind of don't want them to be too entrepreneurial because otherwise they're not going to stick with you as a franchise, are they? You know what I mean? So it's finding that right balance and willing to follow the systems. I'm hurrying the last little bit because I'm on time, running out of time. So my summary: get really clear on where you are in your current business. Those 12 measures I kind of talked about. Score yourself against those. Take a snap of the slides in a sec. Think about that in terms of where you are currently. Really get your head around what the process is, what documentation you need, what do you have to do versus what's nice to do. How do I make my franchise stand out in a busy market, etc. Use some good professional advisors. Remember that running a franchise business is different to what you currently do. I know it sounds obvious, but it's not always doesn't always become obvious as you get into it. Consider using Ashton's Franchising, obviously. That's who I work for. I just think if we've got time, I've probably got time for a question or two, have I? Yeah. So there's the QR code for the slides. There's also these things that are on the chairs. In a couple of weeks' time, the 16th, I'm hosting a webinar online, which is kind of a bit of this, what we talked about, but a bit more detail. 20 odd businesses online, hopefully, that sort of number. So you'd be very welcome to sign in. Doesn't cost anything. QR code on the chair there. Look to sign into that. Come and learn a bit more detail. I've probably got like 30 seconds or something. Yeah, if anyone's got any burning questions, or come and see us on J130, which is just by the BFA stand there. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Come and see me. Yeah. Thank you.